Awaken your spirit chosen ones. Never confuse the softness of a face with the strength of a soul. There's something unnerving about people who age in wisdom, but not in appearance. Science has even confirmed it. Studies show that stress, bitterness, and envy accelerate aging faster than time itself. So while your enemies wrinkle under the weight of their own insecurities, you, the chosen one, glide through years as if time made a secret pact with you. You look younger, sharper, fresher than your age suggests, and that alone has tricked many into believing they could toy with you, underestimate you, or even control you. They thought youthful looks meant a naive mind. They saw a face that carried no lines and assumed it carried no depth. Big mistake. They forgot that a baby face doesn't mean baby steps, and a smooth forehead doesn't mean a smooth brain. The very thing they mocked, your ageless presence, became their blindfold. And while they leaned in, thinking they were about to outsmart you, they were only walking into the trap of their own arrogance. What they didn't know is that your youthfulness is not cosmetic. It's prophetic. It's not the lotion, it's the light. It's not the cream, it's the calling. And when they mistook glow for gullibility, they signed themselves up for the kind of awakening that no anti-aging serum could ever fix. So tonight, let's peel back the layers, let's get brutally honest, and let's expose exactly what happens when people misjudge a chosen one simply because time decided to be kind to your reflection. Number 1, youthful skin doesn't equal a naive mind. They look at your skin and think they know your story. They see the smoothness, the glow, the youthfulness, and instantly decide you can't possibly hold the kind of wisdom, scars, or experience that bends iron souls into steel. They confuse your appearance with your depth, because society has trained people to read wrinkles like they're chapters in a book, and to dismiss anyone who doesn't carry visible proof of struggle on their face. But that's the deception life placed in your favor. Your wisdom isn't written on your skin, it's engraved in your spirit. You've lived through storms, betrayals, and battles that would have aged anyone else beyond recognition, yet you carry no evidence of it on your face. They can't reconcile how someone who looks like they just stepped out of their 20s could speak with the gravity of someone who has walked through lifetimes. And so they assume you're inexperienced, naive, or easy to mislead. But when you open your mouth, their assumptions collapse. Your words don't come from theory, they come from fire. They come from wounds that healed into lessons, from nights where you thought you wouldn't see the morning, from moments where life tried to silence you but you chose to stand taller. That's why their confusion is so striking. They think youth equals emptiness, but you prove that youth can house ancient wisdom. You've learned to walk into rooms where people smirk at your appearance, only to leave them silent after you speak. The irony is, what they mocked became your weapon. They give you the advantage by lowering their guard, by believing they're smarter, stronger, or more prepared. And in their arrogance, they walk straight into your strength. Your face may look young, but your spirit carries centuries of resilience. That's the paradox that rattles them. They can't categorize you, can't measure you, can't control you. They thought youthful skin meant a naive mind, but you showed them that wisdom doesn't age like wine or wrinkle like paper. It simply exists, timeless and untouchable. And number 2, looking young made you invisible, long enough to sharpen your edge. Looking younger than your age has been one of your greatest hidden advantages, even if at times it felt like a curse. People didn't take you seriously. They brushed you off. They thought you were harmless. They dismissed your presence in conversations, overlooked your ideas, and assumed you were still learning how the world works. What they didn't realize was that their dismissal gave you something priceless: time and space to grow without interference. While they underestimated you, You were observing, studying, and sharpening yourself in silence. They thought they were ignoring you, but they were actually giving you the room to build an edge sharp enough to cut through their illusions later. There is a kind of brilliance in being invisible. When no one is paying attention, you can see everything. You watch the way people move, the way they speak, the way they reveal their flaws without even knowing it. While they think you're too young to understand, you're collecting details, learning lessons, and connecting dots that they don't even notice. You're quietly preparing for moments they can't predict. By the time they finally recognize you, you're already 10 steps ahead, because you used their blindness as cover to strengthen yourself. What they call immaturity, you turned into mastery. While they spent their time flaunting titles, money, and surface-level power, you invested in building something deeper: resilience, discipline, and vision. They didn't know that every time they dismissed you, you were secretly stacking wins that they wouldn't see until it was too late. Looking young gave you camouflage, and under that disguise you became dangerous in ways they could never imagine. So when they finally woke up to who you are, it was already too late. You weren't just ready, you were unstoppable. What they thought was weakness became the reason you outgrew them. Looking young didn't hold you back. It protected you long enough to prepare in silence and rise with precision. Number 3, they didn't just underestimate you. They miscalculated the battlefield. When people looked at you and saw someone who appeared younger than their age, they believed they had found easy ground to exploit. They assumed you didn't know enough, hadn't lived enough, or couldn't possibly carry the weight of true wisdom. In their minds, you were an open field waiting to be conquered. But this is where they miscalculated the battlefield. They came armed with assumptions, not understanding that underestimating someone is the most fatal mistake in any fight. They mistook surface for strength and forgot that battles are rarely won by appearances, but by strategy, resilience, and foresight. Their approach was sloppy because they thought victory was guaranteed. They assumed they could manipulate you, trick you, or guide you into places where they could control the outcome. What they didn't realize was that you weren't just standing there waiting to be taught. You had already learned, already fought, already survived fires they couldn't withstand. By believing your youthful look meant weakness, they gave away their biggest advantage: caution. And once they dropped their guard, you didn't even need to strike with force. Their arrogance dismantled them before you had to lift a finger. The truth is, those who miscalculate the battlefield never win. They walk in blind, thinking their opponent is unarmed, and discover too late that they're the ones at a disadvantage. That's exactly what happened with you. Your appearance fooled them into fighting the wrong version of you, and in the process, they ended up defeating themselves. Their energy went into attacking an illusion, while the real you stood rooted, prepared, and unshaken. This is why their attempts to mess with you never land the way they expect. They attack the surface and miss the core. They fight shadows and call it victory until the truth hits them. They weren't dealing with someone fragile at all. They were up against a force they couldn't calculate, and that realization comes only when it's already too late. Number 4, your face distracted them from your firepower. They got so caught up staring at the packaging that they never noticed the weapon hidden inside. Your youthful face, your glow, your calm presence. It distracted them into thinking you were lightweight, unseasoned, someone easy to bend. They became so focused on appearances that they missed the firepower in your spirit, the sharpness in your words, and the weight of your experiences. That blindness belongs to them, not you. It's not your burden to convince anyone of your depth. It's their curse that they could only measure value with their eyes, never their intuition. This is why they walked into your life thinking they had the upper hand. They thought charm could overpower you, thought manipulation could bend you, thought arrogance could silence you. But the moment you revealed just a fraction of what you carry, your intelligence, your resilience, your ability to see through games, it rattled them. Because nothing shakes the proud more than realizing they were fooled by their own shallow judgment. They weren't tricked by you. They tricked themselves. Your face may glow with youth, but it hides storms you've conquered and wisdom that can dismantle pretenders. That's the kind of firepower no cream, no gym, no fake smile can replicate. And here's the irony. The same thing they mocked or doubted about you is what allowed you to operate without resistance. While they wasted time underestimating you, you had the freedom to grow sharper, stronger, and more precise. By the time they woke up, you were already far ahead. So let them regret their blindness. Let them carry the curse of always misjudging people by the surface. You don't need to correct them. You don't need to prove anything. Your presence is proof enough. Their distraction is the very reason they'll never win against you, because the firepower they refuse to see is the same force that now keeps you untouchable. Number 5. You aged in spirit, not in wrinkles. You carry years in ways they cannot see. The world measures age by counting wrinkles, but your journey has been measured in battles fought, lessons learned, and strength gained. You aged in spirit, not in skin. That's what unsettles them. They can't comprehend how someone who looks so young can carry so much depth. To them, maturity is about visible proof, grey hairs, tired eyes, sagging skin. But for chosen ones, it doesn't work that way. Time doesn't etch itself on your face. It carves itself into your soul. Every hardship you endured added layers to your understanding. Every betrayal sharpened your discernment. Every storm deepened your ability to see beyond the surface of people and situations. Those experiences built a maturity that no mirror can reflect. That's why people stumble when they encounter you. They expect someone who looks youthful to be naive or inexperienced. But then you speak, you move, you decide, and it carries the authority of someone who has lived far more than your appearance suggests. This disconnect rattles them. They don't know how to place you, how to define you, how to explain you. You disrupt their categories because you don't fit into the usual rules of time. You're proof that age isn't about years, but about depth. They can't grasp that while their lives have been stretched out by distractions and wasted moments, yours has been condensed into sharp, defining experiences that matured you faster than time itself. And that's what makes you untouchable. They can look young all they want by force, surgery, filters, or pretending. But they can't fake a spirit that has lived, that has endured, that has grown wise without growing weary. That is your distinction. While they cling to the idea that wisdom comes with age, you prove it comes with awakening. You aged in spirit, not in wrinkles. And that's what makes your presence feel timeless, ageless, and unforgettable. Number 6. They thought they could mold you, until you showed you were already forged. They approached you like you were unfinished, as if your youthfulness meant you were still waiting to be shaped, guided, or controlled. In their minds, you were raw clay they could press their fingerprints into, molding you into what suited them best. They thought your softness was weakness, that your openness was ignorance, that your silence was emptiness. But what they didn't realize was that you had already been through fires hot enough to forge steel. What they mistook for pliability was actually quiet confidence, the calmness of someone who had already been refined. That's the irony they can't live down. While they were planning how to mold you, you had already been solidified by experiences they could never survive. You weren't waiting for their approval or their direction. You had already been carved by a higher hand. Every trial, every betrayal, every test had chiseled away what wasn't needed and left only the strongest version of you standing. They thought they were dealing with clay, but they were facing diamond, unbreakable, set and shining in its own form. This is why their strategies don't work on you. Manipulation bounces off, Pressure doesn't bend you, and intimidation only proves how fragile they really are. They can't mold you because you no longer carry the softness of uncertainty. You know who you are, you know what you've endured, and you know what you carry within you. That certainty unnerves them because control only works on those who doubt themselves, and you don't. So now they're left wrestling with the truth. They underestimated you, thinking they had the power to shape your identity. Instead, you revealed that you were already finished, already defined, already stronger than their grip could ever hold. And that is what frustrates them most. The realization that the person they thought they could use was actually the one who exposes their own weakness. They thought you were clay, but you proved you were diamond, forged, unbreakable, and beyond their reach. Number 7. Their mockery was free camouflage, their laughter, their whispers, their mocking words. They thought they were tearing you down, but they were really building a shield around you. Every insult, every doubt, every time they looked at you and dismissed your worth, they handed you camouflage for free. While they were busy underestimating you, they gave you the perfect cover to move quietly, to grow stronger without resistance, and to prepare your moves in plain sight without anyone noticing. Mockery blinded them. It made them believe you weren't a threat, and that belief became the very reason they never saw you coming. You see, mockery is a distraction. It makes people feel powerful, as if they've already won. So while they laughed, you studied. While they doubted, you prepared. While they pointed fingers, you sharpened your edge. They thought their words were cutting you down, but those words only lowered their guard. They had no clue that their ridicule was giving you the greatest advantage: invisibility. And invisibility to someone who carries real strength is deadly, because it allows you to move without noise, without pressure, until the moment you decide to reveal your power. When the time came, you didn't need to shout or prove yourself to anyone. You simply acted. And because they had been conditioned to believe you were weak, your strike landed harder, sharper, and with precision they couldn't counter. Their arrogance was their downfall. They gifted you the freedom to maneuver without suspicion, and in that freedom you became untouchable. Now their laughter doesn't echo the same way. It haunts them, because every time they replay their own words, they remember how those very words gave you room to rise. Their mockery wasn't your burden, it was their blindfold, and it covered their eyes so completely that by the time they realized who you really were, the game was already over. Number 8. Their eyes measured years, but power isn't measured in numbers. They judged you by the simplest measure they could find: numbers. How many birthdays you've had, how many years you've been alive, how old you looked compared to them. Their eyes measured years as if wisdom could be counted the way one counts candles on a cake. But power doesn't work like that, and neither does destiny. What they missed is that you weren't busy tallying years. You were stacking victories, building resilience, and sharpening your spirit in silence. For them, age was their resume. They carried it around like a badge of honor, believing the mere passage of time made them superior. But the truth is, time doesn't guarantee growth. Many grow older without ever growing wiser. Many age without ever evolving. And while they celebrated their numbers, you were quietly gathering something more dangerous, the kind of strength that doesn't need to announce itself. You were investing in purpose, in self-awareness, in vision. They were living by the calendar, but you were living by impact. That's why they can't understand you. To them, power must look like seniority, grey hair, or a long list of years. But when you step into a room, your presence unsettles them because it carries a weight their numbers can't match. You've learned to move with precision, to see through illusions, to withstand storms without breaking. Those are victories that don't show up on a birthday cake, but they shape who you are far more than any age ever could. This is the difference that rattles them. They count years because that's all they have. You count victories because you've lived them, earned them, and survived them. And while they rely on their age to prove importance, you rely on your substance. That's why their numbers will fade, while your impact will remain. Power isn't measured in numbers, and you are living proof that destiny laughs at calendars. Number 9. Looking young became their trap, not yours. They mistook your youthful appearance for weakness, as if looking young meant you were soft, breakable, or untested. That was their trap, not yours. They leaned in close, convinced you were fragile, thinking they could bend you, control you, or use you for their own advantage. But what they didn't realize was that the very thing they thought disarmed you was the exact thing that disarmed them. Their confidence blinded them, and in their arrogance they walked straight into the lion's mouth. You never had to prove your strength up front because their misjudgment did all the work for you. They lowered their guard. They underestimated your mind, your discernment, your ability to see 10 steps ahead. They thought they were in control, but the truth was they were walking deeper into your territory without even realizing it. Their mistake wasn't just underestimating you, it was overestimating themselves. And arrogance always makes people blind to danger. What unsettled them most was how fast the illusion broke. One moment they thought they had you cornered. The next moment they realized the roles were reversed. You weren't the fragile one. They were. You weren't the prey. You were the predator in silence, waiting for the right moment to reveal your power. That's why their attempts always backfired. The moment they leaned in, thinking they could crush you, they placed themselves in the very position where you could crush them. Looking young gave you camouflage, but it also gave you the upper hand. It turned their assumptions into shackles and their arrogance into the perfect setup for their downfall. And now they carry the weight of that realization, that what they thought was your weakness was the very trap that swallowed them whole. They leaned in with pride, but pride made them blind, and blindness is why they'll never escape the jaws they walked into. Number 10. Your real age terrifies them more than your appearance ever could. What unsettles them most isn't how young you look, it's the truth of how old you actually are. Your real age terrifies them because it exposes a mirror they don't want to face. They've spent years bragging about age as if it were proof of wisdom, maturity, or superiority. But when they learn the number attached to your life, it shakes them. Suddenly, they realize all the things you've accomplished, all the battles you've endured, and all the strength you've built in the same span of years they wasted. It's not that you're older or younger than they assumed. It's that you've used your time differently. Where they poured theirs into empty pursuits, you invested yours into growth. Where they repeated the same cycles, you broke patterns. Where they allowed bitterness and envy to age them prematurely, you allowed purpose and resilience to preserve you. And so, when your true age is revealed, it doesn't just surprise them, it convicts them. They are forced to acknowledge that the years they lived produced nothing close to what you carry. This is why they feel threatened. It's not about your face, your glow, or your youthfulness on the outside. It's about the undeniable evidence that you've done more with your time than they have with theirs. You became sharper while they became dull. You grew while they stalled. You rose while they circled in the same spot. Your existence proves that years alone don't make a person wise or powerful. Choices do. And now, every time they look at you, they're reminded of their own waste. They wanted to laugh at you, mock you, or diminish you, but your real age makes their laughter hollow. Because deep down, they know the truth. You are proof of what they could have been if they hadn't squandered their time. That truth terrifies them more than anything they see in the mirror. Number 11. They thought youth meant easy to control. Instead, it meant impossible to predict. They assumed youth was the same as weakness. In their minds, looking younger meant you were simple to manipulate, easy to steer, and desperate for guidance or validation. They believed you would cling to their approval like it was oxygen, letting them mold your choices and dictate your path. But they misunderstood entirely. Youth in you wasn't a liability, it was unpredictability. They thought you were a pawn they could move at will, yet you turned out to be the entire game flipped upside down. What they didn't realize is that chosen ones don't move according to the rules others set. You don't need permission to exist, you don't need validation to know your worth, and you don't rely on the approval of people who only see the surface. They expected you to follow a script, to play the role of the eager student, the obedient follower, or the silent subordinate. Instead, you broke their script in half. You walked in with your own narrative, your own vision, and a will too strong to bend. That's why they couldn't control you. You were never predictable enough to trap. And unpredictability is dangerous to those who thrive on control. They like certainty. They like patterns they can manipulate, behaviors they can anticipate, and reactions they can exploit. But you don't fit into their formula. One moment you're silent, the next moment you speak with a clarity that cuts their lies in half. One moment they think they've boxed you in, the next moment you're standing outside the box altogether. That kind of movement unsettles them because they can't strategize against what they don't understand. So now they are left frustrated. They thought they were holding the strings, only to realize you were never a puppet. You were the one pulling the real levers all along. Their attempt to control you only exposed their own weakness, because nothing is more unpredictable, and therefore untouchable, than a chosen one they thought they could control. Number 12. Time has been your ally, not your enemy. Time has worked differently for you than it has for them. For most people, time feels like an enemy. Every passing year weighing them down, aging their bodies, draining their energy and amplifying their regrets. But for you, time has been an ally. It hasn't eroded you, it has refined you. It hasn't dragged you into despair. It has lifted you into clarity. And while others waste their hours chasing applause, status, or meaningless comparisons, you've been building something they cannot touch, a life preserved by purpose. That's the difference they can't explain. They look in the mirror and see themselves aging faster than their dreams, worn out by envy, stress, and endless competition. Yet when they look at you, time doesn't seem to have left its usual fingerprints. You look fresh, strong, and grounded because your energy isn't spent on proving yourself to a crowd. It's spent on walking in alignment with what you were called to do. Purpose preserves you in ways vanity never can. This is why their resentment grows. They thought they had more years, more chances, more leverage. But now, those years have slipped through their hands like sand, and all they have left are regrets dressed up as excuses. You, on the other hand, look untouched by the weight of time, because you refused to waste it. You treated time as a partner, not an enemy, and that partnership gave you strength they'll never understand. And here's the truth. Time doesn't destroy everyone equally. It destroys those who fight against it, who chase illusions, who squander it. But those who walk with it, who honor its lessons and align with their purpose, find themselves preserved. That's why, while they decay chasing status, you continue to rise. Time hasn't been your downfall. It's been your silent witness, your ally, proving again and again that when you walk in destiny, even the clock works in your favor. Number 13, looking younger is proof. You're carried by grace, not gravity. Your youthfulness isn't just genetics or skincare, it's grace. While others fight gravity with surgeries, filters, and desperate attempts to hold on to what slips away, you carry a glow that can't be purchased or manufactured. It unsettles them because they can't explain it. They look at you and see someone who should be weighed down by the same struggles they've faced, but instead, you move lighter, brighter, and stronger. And that contradiction leaves them frustrated because their lives show the drag of time while yours reflects the lift of purpose. They gossip, they speculate, they invent reasons to justify it. Maybe you're lucky. Maybe you have some secret routine. Maybe you haven't faced the real pressures of life. But deep down, what bothers them most is the truth they don't want to admit. You glow because you're carried. Your peace protects you. Your alignment sustains you. The grace on your life makes time treat you differently. Where they crumble under envy, you rise under resilience. Where they age from bitterness, you're renewed by clarity. And that's what unsettles them most. It's not just that you look younger, it's that your entire presence feels preserved, untouched by the weariness that marks their lives. They can't fathom how someone who has gone through so much could look like they've gone through so little. They can't understand how pain shaped your wisdom without staining your face. They can't process how trials built your strength without breaking your glow. This is the difference between being carried by gravity and being carried by grace. Gravity pulls people down, makes them heavy, strips them of joy. Grace lifts, sustains, and restores in ways no one can explain. That's why when they see you, they don't just see a face that looks young. They see evidence that there is something greater at work in your life. And that truth shakes them more than wrinkles ever could. Number 14. The misjudgment of your age will be the story they regret retelling. They thought mocking your age was harmless fun, a way to diminish your presence and keep you in a box. They told the story over and over, that you were too young, too inexperienced, too unformed to matter. They dismissed you as if time itself would disqualify you. But what they didn't realize is that their misjudgment wasn't just casual, it was fatal. By underestimating you, they exposed themselves. By laughing at your supposed youth, they missed the reality of your depth. And one day, they'll regret every retelling of that story, because the ending doesn't favor them. The truth is, when people measure you by years, they set themselves up for embarrassment. They reduce you to a number, forgetting that numbers don't capture purpose. They bragged about being older, wiser, more seasoned, while you quietly built victories they couldn't match. Their mistake wasn't just underestimating you, it was broadcasting it. They told others you weren't ready, you weren't capable, you weren't worthy. Now those same words will circle back, haunting them, because the very person they mocked will be the one they're forced to acknowledge as unstoppable. What unsettles them most is that you never had to argue. You never had to fight for validation or beg them to see your worth. Time itself revealed it. Their own mouths became the evidence of their blindness. They can't take those words back. They can't erase the laughter, and they can't silence the memory of how confidently they dismissed you. And that will sting far more than your success, knowing that they had the chance to see you clearly, but chose arrogance instead. So yes, the misjudgment of your age will be the story they regret retelling. They thought too young meant harmless, but in truth, it meant underestimated. They thought they were safe mocking you, but they were only recording their own downfall. One day they'll have no choice but to admit the one they mocked was the one they should have feared all along. Every chapter of this story proves one undeniable truth. Appearances are never the measure of power. Looking younger than your age has been your camouflage, your secret weapon, and your advantage. While others counted years, chased illusions, or underestimated you at every turn, you were building something far greater: resilience, wisdom, and an unshakable spirit. Every misjudgment, every mockery, every attempt to control or diminish you only fueled your rise. What they saw as weakness was in fact precision. What they thought was naivete was strategy. What they believed they could shape was already forged, unbreakable and untouchable. You moved silently, grew invisibly, and struck when the moment demanded it. Time became your ally, grace became your armor, and your spirit carried the weight of experience that no appearance could reveal. They leaned in, thinking you were fragile, only to discover they had walked straight into the force of someone they could never predict, never control, and never surpass. The youthfulness they envied, the underestimation they relied on, and the arrogance they displayed all became the scaffolding of your power, and in the end, every doubt they cast, every laugh they shared at your expense, will echo as proof of their blindness. You are living proof that true strength is not measured by age, appearances, or numbers. It is measured by resilience, vision, and the courage to rise while others falter. You are the one they should have feared all along, the one who turned their underestimation into your ultimate advantage. If this resonated with you, don't let it stop here. Subscribe to the channel for more insights that awaken your power. Like, comment, and share this video, because your rise deserves to be seen, heard, and celebrated. Stay awakened, chosen ones.